So today I'll be sharing 7 key traits about Gen Z, what you need to know about them, and how you need to work with them to achieve optimum result with them in the workplace. But before we start, I'll take you on a journey. With just one goal. At the end of today's conversation, I want you to be able to ask yourself key questions. Do I understand the team I work with? And if all the traits I list among the 7, you find your team or you find the things you're meant to do, don't worry. I have a solution for you. And that's why I'm here. Are you ready? Let's do this. Come with me. So, every member of the Gen Z, the people born between this particular age group, come into the workplace with 3 core questions. But before that, they carry an imaginary set of a place they wish to be in your workplace. The idea of this imaginary set is their opportunity to feel seen, heard, and understood. So, understanding that they come into your workplace with an imaginary set helps you understand that they want to be welcomed. But before then, they ask 3 key questions. Would I be seen? Would I be understood and supported? And what if at the end of the day, I'm not be seen and understood? What's my exit way? If you have this in mind about these 3 questions, everything you do in the workplace will be answering them. But that's where I'm here. I would help you answer it by understanding them and seeing how to handle them. So, but before then, let me tell you a story about John. When John finished from uni, the closest job he found was working in a smoothie company. Ideally, we all know what a young boy working in a smoothie shop does. He's making a living. The smoothie shop was like his ability to make sure he pays the bill and take up responsibilities. What does John's responsibility look like in the smoothie shop? Simply wear apron, clean the tables, serve drinks continuously. Something the inner John felt bored doing. But understandably, John understood what work was. Work is the ability to take up responsibility and pay bills. Interestingly, after the continuous monotony for a long while, John came up with an idea. He had noticed what happens Monday evenings, Tuesday evenings, Wednesday evenings, Thursday evenings, and Friday evenings, and approached his boss. Sir, he said to him, give me the ability to create a smoothie campaign with the main idea to help our company grow. Interestingly, his manager had noticed that this particular idea from John brought light into him and understanding people's skills. His manager did the obvious and gave him an opportunity. And that was the best thing that ever happened. John's a storyteller like me. And what John did blew everyone's mind. Follow me. What did John do? John came up with a smoothie campaign. His smoothie campaign did the obvious. He noticed that the best way to get people on Mondays is to call the energy drink the energy fix for Monday survivors. The energy fix for Monday survivors was the magic the team needed. Something happened. Sale rose, so did John, but more importantly, John changed. Now, he didn't just make smoothies again, he expressed himself, and that was what he craved for. What was the result? His boss looked at John's interest from an ordinary boy who came to just sell a smoothie to one who felt part of the team. John came alive. John became a co-owner of the business simply because his ability to contribute. John saw the part of storytelling that was his biggest desire being executed in a smoothie shop and felt he belonged to it. At the end of the day, it was time for John to leave. His boss refused for one reason. He gave him a task. Dear John, Before you leave, you must create in this new employees that thing inside of you that's giving you that energy and that drive to do everything you need to do. You need to create and duplicate yourself and pass on the baton well. It was an easy deal for John because that was what he loved. So before John left, John groomed two new recruits to carry on the responsibility. And when John was done with the smoothie company, John graduated. You see, the story of John is the story of most young people after school. They look for ways to express themselves. And the ability to find this in your organization changes the game. First things first, something happened after COVID. The world was no longer what it used to be. There were common conversations we had in the workplace, like burnout. Burnout became a term that was not so stylish like it used to be. Burnout became a conversation that everybody post COVID got more involved in because people were experiencing it. Statistics say one in every UK worker has taken stress related leaves the past 1 year. What it means is that most of your team members go through this. Quiet quitting has evolved into emotional detachment. Now, there's a global loss of about $1 trillion per year due to poor mental health, which we all know results to loss in productivity. With this obvious challenge, there's something bound to happen. It gets clear that retention is no more about pay. Your ability to retain your team members goes beyond pay. It comes with having team members who understand your purpose, wellness, and your ability to be involved in their life. So now, with this new generation craving for attention and everything that the new workplace craves for, your ability to understand them helps you be 5 steps ahead of them so that most of them find you an organization welcoming. So paint the big picture. The biggest challenge we have, most organizations complain about genz, again, is that most CEOs and organization founders find it hard to pass on the baton of leadership to them. And this is why, because most of them crave for remote work. Most of them technically don't want to come to the office. And how do you come to the office? How do you take over a business that you don't even have an idea over? That vacuum in leadership about the next generation, simply because we don't understand them, is robbing the whole of us of the ability to create successors, because the best of organizations would need successors, and whether you like it or not, for this generation we must have CEOs who are genz, who are deeply rooted in the culture irrespective of how stiff and old they are. So we have a problem, and our ability to understand this generation helps the best of us. But like I said, come with me and I'll show you 7 traits about genz. And if you know these 7 traits and how to solve the problems with them, your organization is 5 steps ahead of them. Trait number 1, they love feedback. Interestingly, the conversation of feedback looks very ordinary, but look around you. Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram. They love shares, they love likes, they love instant gratification. Gone are the days where you wait for 6 months to give feedback because you want to do performance review. These ones love it weekly. Clearly, if you wait for 6 months to give feedback to these ones, you would lose them. Technically, in 6 months, you'll be technically working alone. But there's a solution to it, like we said. Your ability to have room for weekly feedbacks with your team helps them understand where your head is and helps you technically know when your team members are no longer with you. Because, like I said, they live in a digital age. They understand the world, if you're not too sure, they understand the world far better than you because it's technology. So, weekly feedback, real time coaching, Real-time coaching is the best thing that's happened to this generation. And one way to make it easy is to make it create opportunities for reverse mentorship. It shouldn't be completely outsourcing coaching from somewhere else, which is also good. The ability to make older teammates take up responsibility by working with younger teammates help build culture in the organization. They need and crave purpose. Now, most organizations think the conversation about value doesn't connect. But the biggest insight we found out is that this generation crave organizations that understand what their values and purpose is. They remember them. If your culture says one thing and does another thing, they will remind you those ones are bold. They are not scared of what you think. So before you recruit them, you go back to what your mission statement says. Understand it and be ready for questioning because they will ask you difficult questions about how you intend to make sure this mission and value aligns to them. In today's workplace, the interview conversation is no longer about you. It's a two-way street where you interview them and they interview you. And if we're being honest, it makes the both teams become accountable. So you need to be ready and prepared for them. The conversation around mental health. So you see, but back to my question, back to the solution for the second concern. One way we figured out how to help organizations with the first challenge is involving them in writing our rules of engagement. If you remember John's story, the reason why John stayed for a while was that John was able to co-create a new part of the company. John's ability to drive the campaign on smoothie names made John a co-owner to the company, which gave him got him more involved. For these ones, the key question I want to ask is, what does your rule book say? Who wrote your rule book? When was the last time you look at the red book, the company book? And how do you connect it to this generation? One way to help this generation connect with you better is to change the rule book by co-writing it with them. It's 2026 for crying out loud. Your rule book should not be as outdated and should not have been written by one interesting HR member. Your rule book should be co-written by your team, constant team, and management. That way, you're able to understand the pulse of the team and you're able to make each team become more accountable. Because for things they get involved in, they give more commitment. For things they don't get involved in, they leave it to you. And one way to get them involved is to go write your rules of engagement, your red book with them. The next one, mental health is non-negotiable. You see, I used to think the conversation on mental health was a normal Gen Z conversation. Why? Because most times you can't speak to Gen Z for 10 minutes without any of them talking about it affects my mental health. At a stage, most of us got pissed off about it. But with time, it got clearer why this is a trend that we must embrace and find solutions to. You see, prior to COVID, life was normal. But the reality of COVID made some conversations important. Conversations like emotional regulation. So let's get practical. An average Gen Z spends 24 hours on their phones. Most of the time is they work, they play, they communicate, and everything ends and starts on their phone. Generations prior to now, there was time for work and time to stop. But because these kids live in a digital world, most of the times there is no time that work stops. So what it means is that they could be working in a family meeting. They could be working on their phones in several functions. They could be in a Zoom meeting working from home, but in a home that has several things happening around them. So the conversation about emotional regulation and the ability to manage their mental health is one we must help them because no one came with a manual on how to thrive in this generation. But there's a solution around it that has always worked. Rather than increase pay, opportunities for them to be able to speak to a counselor, therapy sessions for every team member, quarterly, yearly, monthly, as one that has always worked with this generation. So, if you want to bait them, open secret, rather than saying we'll pay you more, aside paying them more, remind them that they have vouchers for therapy sessions 3 or 4 times a year, and you got them completely. It might be the first time they will ever experience therapy, and trust me, they would love you for it. And more importantly, you would understand where the mind and the well-being of your team members are. Interestingly, whenever we see things like my door is open, I'm open to feedback. We said it to generations prior to this era. We said it to Gen X. We said it to millennials. So your boss tells you, I operate an open door policy. You can always come in to tell me anything you want. Most generations prior to now never tested this promise. Why? Because they respected authority. Not for these ones. If you tell them the door is open, the next day they'll vouch into your office. Why? Because they believe you. Because they're like the youngest kids. They test everything you see. So these are not the ones to make empty promises because you're going to see yourself on X the next morning. These are not the ones you make empty promises to because they'll keep you accountable. So when you see my policy is an open door policy, make sure it is. They will ask questions they are not afraid to ask. One solution around this is the very simple one: be honest, be human, and let them challenge you. Now, one interesting thing about them is that they're digital natives. As digital natives, they question everything. Prior to now, when we have problems, we look for older people to ask questions to. We look for people that have stayed in the work for a longer time. And the answers we get from them changes everything. But you see these ones, the first people they reach out to when they have questions is Google, it's ChatGPT, it's AI. And irrespective of what you take, AI gives them the best answers. So what it means is that if your culture is shrouded in younger colleagues meeting the older colleagues for solution, then you have a hard time because these ones will never meet you first. They'll meet you second after consulting Google and ChatGPT. And if this would bruise your ego, it's better inform you on time that this is the era and the kind of era they live in. So don't expect them to come to meet you for solutions first. They will come with the solution Google has about your organization. They will come with the solution AI has run about your organization. And 60% of the time, their solution would be correct. So this would give you an opportunity to once in a while swallow your pride and listen to them. Why? Because this is the best era you can ever live in, an era where every solution is not just with the co-founder, with the boss, but with also AI. It prepares us for the kind of work and the kind of generation where there is no monopoly of knowledge. So, with this information, whenever they ask you questions, learn to always answer with patience. Give them reasons to think, and when you're not too sure of things, give yourself a break to come back. Don't impose your answers on them because you don't help growth. So, for questions that you feel threatened automatically, they're asking, excuse yourself, give yourself time, then come back. For where they proved you right or they proved you wrong, be bold enough to accept. That's the only way these ones feel they belong to you and they feel included. Okay, now the most important part of it. I've seen this happen several times because for most of the complaints HR leaders have about this generation, I also noticed that for most of the older ones with this generation, they've not done one simple task: create consequences. Consequences is a situation where you lay down the rules of engagement and ask them clearly to look at those rules of engagement. And once they are done seeing them, you ask them what is expected of them. Once they know what is expected of them, you also give them the opportunity to tell you the consequences of what would happen if they don't do what is expected of them. Most of the times, what used to happen is that we list out these rules of engagement and we enforce it and tell them they must do it. We don't ask them to contribute to the consequences. And what always happens is that they don't do it because there's no consequences. Consequences should not be your responsibility. Consequences should be co-created. It must be like a contract where we agree that this is what will happen if you don't carry out this. And since this is signed, there is no need for us to have a second or third meeting when you don't do it. Automatically, you know when you don't do X, Y, Z that we've agreed to do, you know what will technically happen. You don't need to come back to go after them, because if, for instance, we've agreed that if you don't do this, that some percentage will be taken out from your salary. I'm just assuming, even though I know that's not the right practice. If we agree this is what it is, most of the times they live up to it because most of the time they signed for it. So the ability to create consequences with them helps you and helps the team get better. Learn these consequences game more. It has changed most organizations. I've done it with most genz, and the result has always also amazed me. So rather than giving rules, create consequences and co-create consequences with them. Now, according to the stats, they are a lonely generation. You see, a 2025 study shows that young adults, especially in Europe, are the loneliest group in school and in work. Now, they are always online, they look connected, but they are lonely. Most of them have the greatest numbers of friends, but we all know they are digital friends. Most of them live on their devices all their life. I figured out from personal research that an average genz, and I'm choosing my words carefully, would get you the best return on investment in your organization. Excuse me. But there's something most of them find hard to do: human interactions. If you put them in a room and tell them to drop their phones, they can't have interactions. It's the biggest work for you to do. Most of them can hold a conversation. They can with their phones. Most of them can hold a room. A larger percentage of them don't understand interpersonal skills, which is the bedrock of human connection. You see, because we reduced results in the workplace to bottom line, excuse me, an ROI, we forgot that the first things humans need is interactions and communication. So we lost out on a team who could have connected better. So, so in simple terms, your ability to make this team have more human connections is one edge that you would have over them. Because they are lonely, your ability to build human connections through workshops and retreats helps change the game. And this is where I come in. You see, for over some years now, I've worked with organizations. I moved from working with all generations to specifically working with the youngest generation, because I figured out that the other generations had open solutions. Everybody can handle the millennials, Gen X, baby boomers when it comes to HR training and workshop. But you see, for those younger ones, most people do the same thing with them. And I decided to carve a niche to handle millennials and Gen Zs, the youngest, simply because my interactions with them helps me get better and create more solutions. So I've created a solution for your team. It's a 6-month sign-up contract where I'll work with your team. Because I've worked with teams around Africa, in Africa and Europe, I understand and I've come up with a body of knowledge and frameworks that have worked and will still work. And I want your team to sign up. What I need is 6 months with your team, and the rest is history. And if we don't give you solutions in 6 months, then come back to us. Because we understand that all it takes is commitment from us, from you, and from the team. And this is not just a one-off speaking engagement where we come, make everybody happy and go. This is a long-term commitment where we come up consistently with your team and we get results. In 6 months, working with your team, I call it the coconut workshop. And for everything that has worked with us, we've given them solution. We will help your team not just want to come to work, but want to be like a John who comes into work, express themselves, and when it's time to leave, they don't just leave, they graduate. Thank you. Would you sign up? Thank you.